So who are we and why are we here?
Shall I welcome people back first?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that. Welcome back to part four of In the Clouds podcast. I'm your host in Canada, Ben Tremblay. With me all the way from New Zealand is my co-host, Sarah Lovelace.
Hi.
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 So, where are we at, Sarah?
So just editing the previous episodes of the podcast, you notice a lot more things. And I feel like we're missing out on a lot of things. So this podcast, I want to try really hard to like make every joke and really like soak it in.
Sick. Sorry,
So
I'm just
if I remember correctly from episode 3, we've had the funeral.
yes, that's right.
And Lucy did an impromptu little speech at the funeral.
She was
And
asked, so it was all fair game.
yeah, she was asked. I don't know why she fucking said yes, just to be a fucking drama queen. And then Liam said, "Do you want to go see him? See Peter?" And Lucy said, "Yeah, let's go see him."
Cool. So, do you remember the last thing we read? Because I don't. I think we were on page 35, actually.
Yeah, so mine doesn't have pages, Ben. We've been over this. I know where we were. Let's go see him. And then there's a chapter break. So, is there anything like obviously we've edited like almost 3 episodes of the podcast now. Is there anything about the book you want to add in? Like you want to add just before we start, like anything about where we're at or like anything?
Um, Not really. I'm just very curious to find out what happened, and I'm also dreading the end because I know it just stops.
Yeah, that is the shitty thing. I wish I could go back in time and not be so fucking lazy. Always finish if you're gonna start a fucking book, the least you can do is finish it. If you're gonna write a shitty ass book, you might as well finish it.
All right, who's gonna start?
Well, I just want to say that
Hmm.
throughout editing, like I'm almost like annoyed at how many times Lucy talks about, I guess a part of me did love Peter, or you know what? I did love him. Like it's very annoying.
It really is.
I'll kick us off.
Okay.
Everything looked the same the last time I had seen it, only it was dark out and cold. The last time we were
Ooh,
all
pathetic
there,
fallacy. I love it. Go ahead.
I know. The last time we were there, the sun was shining on my face. I don't know. I was thinking of fucking Dear Evan Hansen. That's why I laughed.
Me too.
There were some flowers by his grave now, probably put there by his mother. They hadn't yet wilted, probably meaning they were brought there recently. Don't they usually put flowers on the, like, aren't there usually flowers at the funeral?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Well, for this rich asshole, I'm thinking, yeah, there
Yeah,
were a lot of
there
flowers.
were some bouquets.
Exactly. Mm. Some grass had started to grow over top of the dirt. So what did
Already?
we I know it's been like
A
has not
day?
been very long. So what are we doing here, Luce? He asked finally. I was probably staring at the gray for 5 minutes before he had spoken. I don't know. I thought I would have so much to say, but I can't think of anything. Yeah, that's been happening a lot lately, he says. Okay, well, I couldn't really say what I wanted to at the funeral. There were too many people there. So I think I can do it now.
Oh my God, is she gonna break up with him?
I didn't know if I was shaking because I was cold or because I was nervous. It seemed weird being nervous talking to someone who wasn't really there. I like to think he was there though, just for that one moment. I'm sorry you can't be here, and I hate that I can only really say goodbye, but that's never going to change, so I guess this is good enough. I was never a good girlfriend to you. I never knew how much I meant to you, and I hate it. And I hate that I missed how you were such a great person. I just want you to know that even though I may not have known it at the time, I really loved you. You saw me for more than who I am, and every day that gives me hope. I know I can be a better person. It just takes a long time to figure it out.
I kind of like that. Like she's growing up a little bit. Good for Lucy.
Yeah.
Shall I continue?
Hmm.
That was beautiful, Lucy, said Liam. I had sort of forgotten he was there. I was lost in what I was saying. He was standing a few feet behind me. That's not really him, down there under all that dirt. It's just a body, I guess. So where is he actually, huh? I started getting angry again. I don't know. Maybe we're.
Angry again. When was she angry originally?
I don't know. Maybe we're not supposed to know. And maybe Peter isn't down there. He's just somewhere in the stars, just looking down on us, thinking how stupid we must be for being sad. Good, because I don't want him to be down here. The thought of it just makes me feel awful that he's down there all alone and will always be. So that's not him, okay? That's not him. Are you ready to go? I turned around. Liam had been crying. I could tell it was hard for him to be there.
Ooh, I got chills.
Yeah, so did I.
is is this good?
Yeah, but I don't want to go home yet. I say, still not very focused on what was going on. Coffee? He asks. Sure, I smile. I had never been to the coffee place to which Liam took me. It wasn't fancy or anything, but it was cozy. It didn't look like a place from anyone from our high school would go to, so at least it had that going for it. We sat at a table near the back waiting to be served. It's called Starbucks. We just ordered 2 cups of coffee.
I like the way you leaned toward the mic when you said that. It's called Starbucks.
So do you still have that feeling like he's just going to turn up somewhere? He asked. No, actually, not anymore. I think when he died, I was so focused on the whole Jake thing that I didn't really process what was going on. There wasn't a flicker of emotion in that sentence. After hearing it, Liam quickly changed the subject. I'm not sure whether we're lucky or not that we weren't there when it happened. I hadn't really thought about that. You, Sam, and I were the only ones who weren't there, I say. Jim and Devin don't like talking about it. I can't even imagine what it must have been like. It must have been horrible, he said. I think that when it first happened, I would have liked to be there. Oh, God. Just so I could have known it happened. I mean, at first I didn't believe it. Jim and Devin are pretty messed up about it. They must have been so scared, he said. Yeah, I say. My eyes started to water a bit thinking about Devin and Jim. I had only talked to them about the details of what happened that night. They never mentioned how they feel about it.
I had a really good dream last night. Oh, yeah? What about? Most of my dreams are shit these days. I was still thinking about Jim and Devin. Who is saying these lines? Yeah, same, but not last night. I dreamt everything was back to normal. It's weird how much I want to go back to a week ago. Never appreciated it at all, I said. Okay, so it was Liam's dream. And
Mm.
every time I have a dream about Peter, it's awful. He dies and I can't save him. I guess the dreams aren't too different from reality, I said. I should have been there at the bar. I could have saved him. Liam has superpowers. I don't know why I didn't go camping. I could have blown off work and none of this would have happened. He was getting mad at himself, I guess. Liam. His tone of voice was scaring me. I could have saved him, Lucy. His hands covering his face. This is when he reveals that he's like a
He's
he's
like
got
actually the
fire that comes out
Flash.
of his hands.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, them. Oh, I could have saved them, Lucy. He says, them, Liam, what's going on? Nothing. Let's just go.
What?
He put he put some money on the table for the bill and started walking towards the door. Okay.
They didn't pay for their coffees yet, by the way.
Yeah, he put some money on the table for the bill and started
No, I know,
walking
but
towards the
like,
door.
what kind of place is this that you pay for coffee after you drink it?
Also, did they even drink their coffees? Did they?
I
There's
have
no
no
description
idea.
of the coffees that were ordered or anything. Okay. By the time I stood up, he was halfway to the door. I was more worried than confused. We didn't talk on the car ride home at all. It wasn't a very long drive. The whole time, I wondered what Liam had meant by them. How could he have saved them? It didn't make any sense. Take it.
He parked in my driveway and turned the car off. I could tell he wanted to talk before I left, so I didn't go out right away. Lucy, do you believe in heaven? He was looking straight ahead, not at me. I don't know. I like to think there is a heaven, but the more I do that, the more impossible it seems. It just doesn't make sense to me. Liam, what are you not telling me? Where do people go when they die, or are they just gone? He was avoiding my question. Maybe you do go to heaven, or maybe the clouds are just clouds. Maybe someone just invented the idea of heaven because the thought of no life after death is just unbearable. But sometimes I think there's more in the clouds than just the clouds. Oh, we got the book name in
Oh,
the
here we go.
in the
R-
text.
roll credits.
And I like to think that Peter's there. I like to think that too. He then looked at me. Good night, Lucy. Liam, you know you can tell me anything, right? Good night, Lucy. Good night, Liam. I got out of the car. Oh, this is creepy.
Can I just say that I didn't know yet that you had to put like a comma after like
Text before the
text
quotation
before
marks.
someone's name.
Right.
So it's like, good night, Lucy. Good night, Liam.
One of my first memories is me trying to remember where I came from. I thought where I was before. I thought where was I before I was born, and I still wonder. I thought if I could just remember hard enough, I would know. People are just like ideas. For instance, ideas for films come out of absolute nowhere. And then, like this book did. And then you start to think of all the thousands of people who went into planning and all the changes that had to be made. But even so, each individual idea came out of nowhere, and so do people. We're just thought up one day. We change and we grow, and sometimes we decide we are refined enough to become finished products. Then we disappear, people forget about us, and find new ideas.
So there's a chapter break here. There's been a lot lately. We've
Yeah,
had like two so far. So the chapters are getting shorter. I don't know
we're
if that means something.
we're getting close.
There's something. to quote to quote Lucy earlier, that was the beginning of what I wasn't sure. All right, here we go. When I got in my house, I went over everything that had just happened. I had never seen Liam act like that. And what did he mean by them? She already said this. Then I remembered Liam lived with his aunt. How could I have been so oblivious? I never once wondered why Liam lived with his aunt. He obviously had had parents. Durr. He was born, wasn't he?
Lucy's not the most perceptive.
No. I just never bothered asking, or rather, I didn't even know to ask. I wondered what happened to them. Them. It really bothered me that this had never occurred to me. It wasn't that late, so I called Devin. I needed answers that couldn't wait till morning. 3 rings felt like they lasted forever. Hello? He didn't sound tired or anything. Hey, it's Lucy. Lucy, what's up? This is really random, but I wanted to ask you about Liam's parents. Yeah, Lucy, that is really random. His voice, his tone of voice changed. His voice was now deeper and sadder. I thought you knew about Liam's parents. Apparently not. I started preparing myself for what I was about to hear. I knew it wasn't going to be pleasant. I wasn't sure I even wanted to know anymore.
I got
Okay,
murdered at a
fine.
bar, stabbed in the stomach.
Oh, God. Okay, fine. Sorry. It's just not easy to talk about. You know, with Peter and everything. I know. I'm sorry. I felt bad talking about this behind Liam's back, but it seemed like something about which everyone already knew. They died, Lucy. I think it's been 9 years now. There was a fire at his old house. He was the only one who got out. Then he came here to live with his aunt. How have I never heard about this? I wasn't angry or anything. I was just generally concerned as to why I was never
I
informed.
bet she's been told like 20 times.
It's just the drama of the book needed her to not know until now when after Peter has died, just to make it even more dramatic. I don't know, Luce. It's not something you really want to discuss on an everyday basis. I guess. Anyway, how are you? Spectacular, he answered sarcastically. Come on, I'm serious. It's not easy, Lucy. Once you see something like that, he stopped talking. I'm sorry you had to see it. This conversation was even more painful than the first. Yeah, well, I should probably go now, he said. Yeah, sure. I'll see you soon. He hung up. I don't know if he really had to go or he just couldn't talk about it anymore. I went to bed shortly after. It had been a long day. Come to think of it, there hadn't been many short ones lately.
I had an unprecedented dreamless sleep. I had more than enough new material about which to dream. Perhaps I was saving it for another time, or perhaps I did have a dream, but it was so horrible that my mind completely blocked it out. Either way, it was better than my previous dreams. Seeing Peter in my dreams was becoming an everyday occurrence. I woke up and went downstairs to find my mother on the phone. Oh, Lucy, I was just about to wake you up. I'm on the phone with Liam's aunt. She rested the phone on her chest and said this, as she said this. He didn't come home last night. Do you have any idea where he might be? I grabbed my mother's car keys that were on the kitchen table and started to walk toward the front door. I looked at the clock. It was 4 a.m. Lucy, where are you going? She asked, following me to the door. I'm going to get Liam, just stay out of it. So you know where he is? Yes, well, I think so. I'll be back soon, I promise. She rushed over, trying to get the keys out of my hand. Mom, please just let me go. She released her grip. She never actually told me I could leave, but the look in her eyes was enough permission. After everything, she really couldn't refuse. I got in the car and started driving. It seemed weird that Liam didn't go home last night. Even given the circumstances, it just didn't seem like something he would do.
Ooh, where's Liam? I'm scared.
Stabbed. Stomach. Bar.
Leave it to this friend group to get fake IDs and get into a bar against Lucy's wishes. He was exactly where I knew he would be. He was facing the opposite direction of me. He was right there the whole time.
You can't sleep in my car anymore, Liam.
I thought you were continuing on reading. Your aunt's worried about you. I was now only a few steps behind him. Is she? He still wasn't facing me. He didn't seem to care that his aunt was worried. How long have you been out here? I don't know. An hour maybe? How did you know I'd be here? I just did. I knew he'd be at Peter's grave because that's exactly where I would have been. It's really late. Let's go. They were just at Peter's grave.
He
Why am I angry
pulls
about it?
me.
Anyway, it's just weird that he like went back to Peter's grave. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I don't want to be like judgmental of the characters. What if they turn out to be like now I feel bad for shitting on Lucy.
Totally.
He calls me. That sounded so dang. Okay.
That's Vape Moana.
You know, don't you? He finally turned around and was now facing me. Know what? I knew what he was talking about, what I didn't want to say. About my parents. How did you know I knew? I say. I just did, he said. It's nice here, don't you think? It's a graveyard, I said confusedly. No, not here. I mean the time, when it's late and there aren't any cars on the roads, and it's almost silent except for the birds. What are you getting at? It's the only time when I feel like I matter. You mattered to me. I don't think I would have survived the last week if it hadn't been for you. We were just standing there looking at each other. I didn't really understand why Liam was so intrigued by silence. I hated silence. For me, it can never be completely silent. My thoughts just get louder. That's not true. I mess everything up. I hugged him and then we left. He said he would go home, and I trusted that he did.
New chapter. The next few weeks were relatively the same. I spent most of my spare time with Liam and tried to get through school in one piece. My mom let me have the car that day. She was just another person becoming a pushover. That's
A pushover.
mine says pushover.
Just read it
What?
I read it wrong.
Oh my god.
I've never seen that word before. Me trying to read a pushover.
I
Never living that
was
down.
like, do we have two different copies of what's going on? At school on
Sorry.
Monday, everyone seemed to be back to normal. People no longer walked around like zombies. People laughed in the hallways again, and people didn't blatantly stare at me anymore. My 15 minutes of fame was over. JK. I managed to make it through the day. When school ended, I walked out to my car only to find Jake waiting for me there. What do you want, Jake? I said. Just to talk. Well, I don't really have the time. I got in my car, but he was in the car, but he was still standing there. I rolled down the window. Jake, I've been through enough as it is. Just leave me alone. Are you dating Liam? He asked. Where the hell did you get that idea? And no, even if I were, why does it matter to you? He was really starting to piss me off. It doesn't. I don't know. You guys always seem to be together. Well, so I've heard. Well, you shouldn't listen to people. Wow, you really know how to piss me off, eh? Lucy, just give me a chance. For what? Jake, leave me alone, please. Every time I look at you, what? He impatiently waited for the end of the sentence. It just reminds me of what I did, and I can't stand feeling that way. Friends? He asked. No, Jake. I finally drove away. No.
No, no, no.
I finally drove away. Why was he so persistent? It seemed as though every time I made a little progress moving on, something instantly started to impede me.
I got home and checked my phone. I'd received 4 texts from Jake, all saying that he needed to talk. I finally gave in and told him I would meet him for coffee. Not the same place to which Liam and I had gone, because that was some sacred shit. We went to a place popular with people from our school, which was probably a mistake because we received several skeptical looks. I really didn't care though. It
So
was
this
a
is like Tim Hortons.
Starbucks. Yeah. He was there before I was. I sat across from him. What is this about Jake? Did I read it like that?
That inflection. What is this about Jake?
What is it's because I didn't put a fucking comma. So I read it wrong.
That's so funny.
What is this about, Jake? I didn't even greet him or anything. I just wanted to get whatever this was over with. I feel really bad about what I did. He was talking very softly, probably in fear of someone hearing. Good, I said. I couldn't resist being mean to him. I could easily get away with it. Lucy, just listen to me. I never in a million years thought that that would happen to Peter. Are you going to apologize again? I could tell he was getting frustrated with me, so I stopped interrupting. I just wanted to explain why I kissed you that night. Now I was listening. Ooh. Is he going to tell me that I'm sad and beautiful again? Is someone else going to tell me that? Okay, here he goes. It sounds stupid, but I've always liked you. Well, since grade 9. Anyway, I told Peter about it, and he said he was already dating you, which I found out later he wasn't. He had just lied so I wouldn't try anything with you. When I found out you guys were dating, I was so angry with him. And then when I knew you'd be at the party, I guess I've always wanted to get back at him. When I saw you at the party, you just looked so pretty, and it wasn't even about him anymore. Please stop. There were tears again. The whole time I was listening to Jake, I was anxious. It was too much to hear, but I couldn't stop listening. Lucy, I'm not trying to make Peter look bad or anything, but that is the truth. I didn't even know what to I didn't even know what to say to that. How could you have liked me this whole time? Everyone knows you have a different girlfriend every week. I was trying to deny the entire thing. I wanted to bring up anything I could think of to refute it. Yeah, I know, but none of them meant anything to me. To be honest, I was waiting for you and Peter to break up. We almost did. He wouldn't have had to wait much longer. I feel like such a dick now. Don't. It's like you said before. I kissed you back, right? I moved to the chair next to him. Right. What? Take it away, Ben.
I can't. Right.
This is some shit.
Right. He leaned in and kissed me, and I didn't protest. That time we kissed, it was brief and interrupted. I can't put a time on the kiss. I was so caught up in it. Wait, it was brief and interrupted or brief and uninterrupted? Oh, sorry. The last time we kissed, it was brief and interrupted. I can't put a time on this kiss. I was so caught up in it. If people were around us watching, I didn't care because in that moment, nothing else but Jake mattered to me. Oh, Jesus Christ, Lucy.
Oh my God, Lucy.
And this time I didn't feel guilty. I saw no fault in what I was doing. What's Liam gonna think?
Oh, well, we don't even know
Liam's gonna
anything
fucking
about
kill
Liam.
himself. I'm not ready for it. Okay, take it away.
At the school the next at the school the next day, I was
The
actually happy.
school.
Yeah, the school, the U of T. I was getting my books for my next class when Jake came to see me. What are you doing tonight? He asks. Absolutely nothing. What do you have in mind? She has just moved right along. Want to hang out at my house? Sorry, I'm really silly. I'd love to. He kissed me and walked away. That's when I saw Devin walking towards me. What's Devin and Jim gonna think?
Like I was only Devin, but Devin and Jim. Because
They're
they're
the
one
same
person.
person. They're Kurt and Ram. They're the same person. What was that about? He said confusedly. Oh, it was nothing. I hadn't have I hadn't have thought of being confronted about it before then. Really?
Sorry.
I hadn't have thought of being confronted about it before then. It didn't look like nothing. I couldn't even look him in the eyes. Okay, we're sort of dating. It felt weird saying it out loud. And when did this start? He sounded angry. Yesterday, Devin burst my bubble. I wasn't so happy anymore. Don't you think it's a little soon? It's way too soon.
Yeah.
You know what? I've been miserable for weeks and he makes me happy, so just lay off. Lucy, he started. He sounded more sad than angry now, or maybe disappointed. He makes me happy, I repeated. I walked to my next class. I spent lunch with Jake because I didn't want to have to deal with Devin. Do you think people think I'm a bad person for dating you? I say to him. Don't listen to people. He smiled. I'm serious. Lucy, you're not a bad person. You're just moving on in a day. He kissed me again. Jake made me feel happy, but I couldn't stop feeling guilty. When I got home from school, I felt awful. And then I saw the picture of me and Peter on my bedside table. I could barely look directly at it. I could barely look at myself in the mirror. I was starting to think dating Jake was a horrible idea.
Starting to? Jesus. Maybe if I'm lucky, Jake would be Jake. What? Maybe if
Maybe
I'm
if I'm lucky, Jake would be Jake and become bored with me after a week.
Thank you. I just stopped reading halfway through because I got confused and didn't bother to read the rest of the sentence. So
It's all
cool.
good.
It hadn't been that long since I had last seen Liam, but I still missed him. I called him and asked him to hang out. My parents were out with their cars, so I walked over to Liam. It wasn't far, so I didn't mind. As soon as I got there, Liam wanted to leave, probably because his aunt was there. I was starting to get the feeling that Liam didn't like her very much, but he was also hungry, so we decided to go out for dinner.
He was also hungry.
He was hangry. I watched Liam as he put on his jacket. He put his hands in the pockets. He then looked confused, feeling around in them. He pulled out a ring box. He looked mortified.
Oh shit.
Oh my God. He closed his eyes tight. That's kind of an odd thing to have in your pocket. Are you planning on proposing to someone, Liam? I laughed. I didn't know what was going on, so I didn't see any fault in making a joke. No, not me. That's when I stopped smiling. Liam, what is that? But I already knew what it was. It's Peter's. Hearing those two. Oh,
Oh, it's
oh
Peters.
no.
Remember when Peter wanted to tell Lucy something that night that he
No.
died?
It's Peter's. Hearing those two words was like taking a bullet. Well, was I guess. He asked me to hang on to it a few weeks ago. I completely forgot about it until just now. He asked me to hide it until he stopped. Until when? I shouted. Liam, what was he going to ask me? Soon after prom. Oh my God. Sometime after prom, he said softly. Liam, I was going to break up with him. I felt like I was going to throw up. Why would he do that? Because he was Peter. You know who he was. No, I don't think I do, I said. Do you want to go home, Lucy? He asked. Yes, please. But I really didn't. I wanted to go to Jake's. But I couldn't exactly ask Liam to drive me there. It would be too awkward because I don't think Liam ever knew we were dating at that point. Liam drove me home. We didn't talk the entire way. We didn't even say goodbye to each other. I decided to call a cab to take to Jake's. I couldn't wait until the next day to see him. It had to be now. With Jake living out in the middle of nowhere, the fare wasn't exactly the fare. FAIR wasn't
He's fuck
exactly
off.
cheap. It didn't matter to me though. I texted Jake on the way there to let him know I was coming. The anticipation of being in the cab was unbearable. I wanted to get this over with as soon as possible. I wanted to get him out of my life for good.
Oh, she's gonna break up with him.
Maybe he'll die
When I find,
first.
what if everyone Lucy gets with dies and that's the book?
It's like it follows.
Yeah. When I finally got there, walking up to his house was almost too much for me. This was the house where everything had happened. This was where I was the night Peter died. But I had to keep walking. There was no way I was leaving now. I knocked hard on the door. Jake came to the door immediately. He tried to kiss me, but I stopped him. What's going on? He looked out the door and saw the cab. You took a cab here? Yeah, and he's waiting, so I have to make this quick. I took a deep breath to prepare for what I was going to say. I can't see you anymore. Wait, why? I could tell he didn't expect this at all. It's Peter. It's too soon. Not for me. I've been waiting years for you, Lucy. I'm sorry, but I can't do this. How do you know if you won't even give it a chance? I don't know. I started crying. I didn't think it was going to be that hard. Lucy, you don't know what you're saying. You need to move on, he said. What if I don't want to move on? I yell. Lucy, we talked about this. No, Jake, you talked about it. I need to leave now. I turned. He said my name as I walked away, but I didn't turn around. Not even for a second, because I knew I'd be walking away from everything, but the guilt was still there.
The guilt was always there. It was in my chest and my face and made me feel heavy. And it was behind my eyes, keeping every tear on the edge of escaping. I dreamt about Peter again that night. I dreamt of him almost every night, and just before I fall asleep, I try not to think about him, but trying not to think about him was thinking about him. I'd always miss him after I wake up. Even if I were having the most horrible dream about him, at least I would get to see him. Even if it were only for a second, I'd be happy. In a perfect world, Peter would still be with me. Then again, you'd have to be completely insane to think that the world could ever be perfect. And yet, people wish for a perfect world every day. Well, maybe we're all just a little insane.
Well, Lucy, you're so deep.
It's so profound.
Can I
Uh,
just say that how shit of a friend is Liam? Your fucking best friend gives you a ring to hold on to and you put it in your jacket pocket and forget about it.
I woke up to a few missed messages from Jake. I already knew what they were going to say, so I didn't bother reading them. I was getting sick of the routine of going to school. The fact that that's what my life currently consisted of was maddening. Waking up, going to school, going to sleep, and starting all over again. It made me want to get out of school as soon as I could, which made me wonder what was waiting for me after school, either more school or trying to find a career. It seemed so exhausting. I feel you. I felt like I was stuck and that I would always be stuck in the feeling of always being stuck. You could say I was depressed or had lost all hope, and you'd probably be right, but I wasn't giving up. That would have been too easy. I knew there was something more, and I intended to find it.
That's the day I packed up. I would leave the next night. Dropping out of school just before graduation isn't exactly ideal, but what was those days? What?
What was those days?
What was those days? I planned to take the train out to as far as it would take me. I packed my suitcase under my bed so
I'm
no one would
sorry,
see
where
it.
does Lucy live?
Toronto, Ontario? Like, I have no clue.
So as far as the train will take me, so like Vancouver.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Cool.
um, the only problem was that I needed money. Then a horrible idea came into my head. Sell Peter's ring. I tried to think of others, but that seemed like the only plausible solution. This also involved Liam. He had the ring and I couldn't let him know I was leaving. I called him telling him I wanted the ring. He didn't ask why, which was nice, although that didn't mean he was going to ask me at some point. I asked him to hang out too. Otherwise, it would have been suspicious just to ask for the ring. We hung out in my room because my parents were watching bad television downstairs.
They have no taste.
Side note, they have no taste. We talked mostly, although it wasn't too long until Liam brought up why he was really there. Are you sure you want the ring, Lucy? What are you going to do with it anyway? He asked finally. It was going to be mine. I might as well keep it. I hated lying to Liam. Well, I can't say I approve, but I guess it's not really my place to say. He took the ring out of his pocket. When he handed it to me, I studied it for a few seconds. It was a beautiful ring, I'll admit. I didn't like holding it. I was glad I would be selling it soon. She is a savage girl.
She's a
She
piece of
does many
work.
she does many savage things. As I looked at it, I instinctively put the ring on my finger. Upon realizing what I was doing, I quickly took it off. I ended up dropping it and it rolled under my bed. Shit, I'll get it, Liam says. I tried to remain calm. You take it.
That's okay. I'll get it later. Just let's go downstairs. It wasn't working. It's no big deal. Before I knew it, he was halfway under the bed. What do you have under here? Did it jump in the suitcase? Like, what's going on here? I quickly dropped to the ground and started searching. He pulled out a suitcase, opened it, revealing most of my clothes and some essentials. Why didn't I zip it up?
Why did he? Oh, like he thought it was in the suitcase.
Are you going somewhere, Lucy? He was angry. I found the ring. I stood up. We were now face to face. Lucy, what are you doing? Couldn't tell you. Well, you're not leaving, are you? I don't know. I cried again. I must have broken some sort of crying record, most tears in the shortest amount of time or something like that. What do you think leaving is going to do, huh? If you leave, nothing will change. It will only get worse. How do you know? How do you know I can't just leave and start over? It doesn't work like that. You think if you leave, you'll stop thinking about him, or everything around you will stop reminding you of him. But guess what? It's not that easy. That shit follows you around, Lucy. It doesn't matter where you are. You're still going to miss him. He held my arms. I know, okay? I can't be here anymore. I say, forcing the words out. What about me then? You're just going to leave me behind? He was angry. I moved here after my parents died. It didn't get easier, it got harder. You think that moving away will solve anything? Well, it won't. There's no reason for why these things happen. They just do. People just die, and that's the end. There's none of that. Everything happens for a reason, shit to hold on to. Nothing anyone says will make this day better, okay? We just have to live with it. I don't know what to say. Say you'll stay. Fine, you win. He hugged me. You wouldn't have done it anyway, he smiles. Would so. That was
That was
a
kind of that was
that
kind
was
of
real.
intense.
Yeah, that was real from Liam's end.
Yeah. Go Liam.
Yeah.
Putting Lucy in her place. I saw Jake in the halls at school. He didn't look at me, but I know he saw me. I had heard he was seeing someone. The more things change, the more things stay the same. School started going by again. School started going by faster again. I found myself zoning out most of the time. I didn't like sleepwalking through life, but it was better than before. Just before last period was about to end, Liam texted me, "Want to go somewhere?" I replied yes, without thinking, of course. I met him at his locker after class. "So pray tell, where are we going?" I asked happily. "Do you want me to tell you or show you?" He wasn't as happy as I was. "Show, I guess." I got in his car and started driving.
We got in his car instead of driving.
Sorry. I was confused. We got in his car and started driving. I didn't know where we were going, so it was kind of exciting, but also scary. I knew it wouldn't be somewhere good.
So we're not going to Disneyland?
Along the way, oh, I remember this part of the book. Oh, okay, here we go. Along the way, we stopped at a gas station. Liam went in to pay for the gas, and I went in to get snacks. The cashier thought we were a couple, and it created an awkward atmosphere. She instead would be, she insisted we would be a good couple. Some people just don't know when to shut up. We drove for about 2 hours total. We finally drove up to an abandoned house out in the country. I didn't get it at first. We got out of the car and just stood there at the end of the driveway, just staring at it. What is this place? I asked. This is where it happened. Or what happened? That's when I realized. I suddenly began to notice the house had fire damage. This was Liam's old house, and this was where his parents died. Where my mom fell asleep with a cigarette because she was drunk, where my dad told me to run outside and wait until he got there, when it was too late to save them. Do you come here often? I ask. Often enough. Why? Because sometimes living is hard, just living, just waking up is hard and it's unbearable. Like I can't understand how I'm still breathing, but I am. When everything happened, I thought I stopped living. It was so horrible and I couldn't live anymore, but I had to. So sometimes I try to forget what happened and it makes it easier. Or sometimes I pretend they're not dead so that I can feel less guilty about being alive. I don't like doing that. I don't like living a lie. So I come here and it reminds me. Oh,
Awful. Why do you do this?
where did this come from? Like, did I really write this?
Yeah, like what were you going through?
Nothing. I don't know. Like, it's very fucked up.
Why
I
do
mean,
you
I was
do this?
depressed, but weren't we all? Aren't we all?
What we are. Why do you do this to yourself? I hated how little I knew about Liam and how long I had known him. Because it was my fault and I deserve to feel this way. Stop it. You know this isn't true. I hugged him. But it is. I wish you could see how wonderful you are, I say. I could say the same about you. He put my hand on my he he put his hand on my cheek. I thought he was going to kiss me, but then he took his hand away, turned and stared at the house. Let me tell you something, Lucy. You make everything in life a lot better. I think of how shitty everything is all the time, and then I remember you, and I feel stupid for thinking the world is a bad place, because if you're here, it's like heaven. Why did you take me here, Liam? Because I was tired of coming here alone.
Oh, Liam. Oh, I'm
Arr.
afraid to keep reading.
Yeah, me too. Shall we read this in the next little chapter and then give it a good break? Because then we'll have 10 more pages to read for the next episode. And we've been recording for about 45 minutes.
Okay, cool. By the time we drove back, it was dark. For me, the drive back was harder than the way there. I had new things to think about. Peter thought you were perfect, you know. You mean for him, nobody's perfect. No, he seriously thought you were perfect. But you're not. You have one flaw, if any. And that's what. And what's that then? I asked. You see the bad in things. Well, my boyfriend died. I don't really think anything good came of it. Maybe not, but there's always something worth fighting for, he said. Liam, I already told you I'm not going to leave. I just want to make sure you're okay. He held my hand and stared at our hand entwined for a few seconds. So Jake Stewart, huh? He let go of my hand. Did Devin tell you? Yeah. Well, he told you wrong because I'm not dating him anymore. Good, he said. Why is that good? I wasn't angry. I was just curious as to why he even cared. Because he doesn't deserve you. He started to speak again, then stopped himself.
When we got back into town, we went to Liam's house. As soon as we got through the door, Liam headed straight for the kitchen. By the time I got in there, I saw him pouring a glass of vodka. He took a sip and then turned around and looked at me. It's been a hard day, he says. Every day is hard. Pour me a glass. Drinking straight vodka is almost always a bad idea. The taste isn't that bad as long as you act like it doesn't taste bad. Psychosomatic pain. I'm totally against chasing alcohol. It's the equivalent to spraying your air freshener in the bathroom. What did you mean by
Wow.
that?
Like, it's like, this is what I mean by it. I mean, and this is how I feel, used to feel. Chasing alcohol is like spraying like apple flavored air freshener on top of a shit. Like the shit is still there. It just smells like apples now.
um, it's okay. Sometimes it's better to smell the shit than shit masquerading as spring freshness. Wow. We sat at
Wow.
we sat at the kitchen table and talked and drank for hours. I didn't care that it was late, and I didn't care that it was a school night.
They drank straight vodka for hours. Did they die?
You know what's stupid? I say, how they say that in high school you find yourself. In grade nine, I was a nervous wretch trying to fit in desperately. And then I was with Peter trying to be what he wanted me to be, or what I thought he wanted me to be, I guess. He never wanted you to be anything other than yourself, whatever that means, I say. I know it doesn't make much sense, does it? Not really. We laughed even though it wasn't really funny, but we were really hammered.
Liam started pouring us more, but dropped the bottle. It didn't shatter, but it spilled on the floor. He stumbled over to the counter to get a cloth. I knelt down to pick up the bottle, and he was wiping the floor. At one point, we both looked up at each other. We didn't say anything, we just stared. The room was spinning, but I could still see him looking into my eyes. He put his hand on my cheek like he did at his old house, but that time he didn't turn away. He kissed me. I wanted to kiss him forever. That's when I knew I loved him. And there's nothing better than kissing someone you love, and nothing emptier than kissing someone you don't. It was the kind of kiss that could end wars and stop time, the kind you remember forever. And even though we were both drunk and there was vodka spilled on the ground and it started to pour rain, everything was perfect. Wow. I'd like never had a boyfriend before when I wrote this, just so we know, just to contextualize it. I was a big fat virgin.
Hopefully, I'll still remember this in the morning, he said. I stood up and walked to the counter. I rummaged through the drawer until I found a permanent marker. What's that for? He asked. I rolled up the sleeve of his shirt and wrote, I kissed Lucy last night on his arm and then handed the marker to him. He proceeded to write, Liam kissed me last night on my arm. Now we won't forget.
End of chapter.
Wow.
So, what did we think about that?
That was a really interesting few chapters. I really liked the part where they were at the grave and like Liam's talking about how Peter being in the stars or something. I thought that was quite poetic.
Hmm. Yeah, like I just genuinely enjoyed like getting through this part of the story.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, it wasn't good, but you know, it was good.
It was decent. It got you there.
We have a viewer question if you're willing to entertain it.
What does that mean?
So my friend Phil listened to the podcast and he wants to know if Lucy is a Mary Sue or an Auntie Sue. So, a Mary Sue is a type of fictional character, usually a young woman, who is portrayed as unrealistically free of weaknesses. Originating in fan fiction, Mary Sue is often an author's idealized self-insertion. Mary Sue stories are often written by adolescent authors. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
she kind of like over exaggerates her importance in the story and like or then there's the anti-Sue who is like the opposite, who is just kind of like shit at everything and like self-deprecating.
No, Lucy's definitely, I wouldn't say she's a Mary Sue. I would say that she kind of thinks the world revolves around her. Like everyone went to school that day just to see how I would react, you know?
Right. Interesting.
And she's juggling all these guys, which there's nothing wrong with. I liked how it was too soon with Jake, but Liam, it's fine. Yeah, a lot happened in that chapter, in those chapters.
It did, yeah.
So can you do your Ben thing where you go, so if I'm understanding correctly, and you just give a brief synopsis of what we read?
So if I'm understanding correctly, um Liam and I was just gonna call him Mary Sue. Liam and Lucy go to Peter's grave to visit, as one does, and then Lucy finds out. Oh, Lucy dates Jake for like a hot second, and then Lucy finds out that Liam's parents died in a horrendous fire when Liam's mother was drunk and smoking a cigarette. And then ultimately Liam and Lucy kiss and like they're in love.
Yeah. And also, Lucy had packed a suitcase and she was going to leave.
Ah, yes, 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 yes. She was
And
gonna
another
pull
thing
a
that happened was Liam reaches in his coat pocket and finds the ring that Peter was going to give to Lucy.
right, of course. So what do we think about that? What do you think about Peter going to propose to Lucy?
I think I stole it from Final Destination 3. I think that's
Mm,
where that was stolen from.
mm.
And I also fact checked that Sex in the City reference, and it did come out before the book. So I did steal that as well.
Which one was that?
I'll never laugh again.
Oh, yeah.
I felt like I would never laugh again.
That's funny.
So yeah, I really liked those chapters.
Yeah, I'll
All
see
right.
you in the place.
So stay tuned. Oh, there's some horrific shit coming up, you guys. Just stay tuned. That's all I can really say.
I'll see you in the place.
I'll see you in the place.